Hello there again from Johannesburg as we reflect on the 27th Sunday of Ordinary Time. Our history as a human species show that we desperately cling to what we think we know, often long after its sell-by date has been reached. George Bernard Shaw noted that all great truths begin in blasphemies. Beyond religious fundamentalism, intolerance has just as often come from within the ranks of the scientific community itself. As Arthur Schopenhauer recognized, an important idea of truth must endure a hostile reception before it is accepted. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. The dictum that science progresses funeral by funeral proves that scientists are just as much victims of the human conditions as the rest of us, with all the prejudice and frailties that entails. In today's Gospel, Jesus points out how in the course of every period, we as the human community always tend to take the easy way out. This is just the normal turn of events. Then eventually someone like Moses comes along and makes something official, although it was originally just a spontaneous compromise. It was intended to suit a particular circumstance. Now all of a sudden it takes on the force of law, wearing the mask of orthodoxy. Jesus' teaching on marriage, the right of women and of children, brought together in this passage, calls on us to dig deeper and to look wider into the context of gospel living, marriage, family life, law and custom. But as always, we begin by placing ourselves within the context of Jesus' teaching. The Pharisees are setting a trap for Jesus, aren't they always? There is the matter of secular power. Will Jesus denounce the divorce and remarriage of King Herod, as John the Baptist has done? We know that King Herod and his new bride, his brother's ex-wife, do not take kindly to any criticism. There is the matter of religious authority. Will Jesus contradict the laws of Moses? Wherever religious authority is entwined with political power, truth and justice gives way to expediency. Then there is the matter of culture and tradition. Will Jesus estrange the people by talking out against the dominant patriarchal structure? We must remember that Jesus' own mother Mary was herself a child bride, given in marriage without any such modern notion of consent. Jesus avoids all the pitfalls and the arguments of casuistry and goes directly to the Creator's original intent, that the two should become one as the image of the living God. Karl Rahner wrote that the first light shed by divine revelation on the secular reality of marriage resulted in the human realization that God in transcendence was outside the sphere of marriage. Marriage is essentially a reality of the created world, which has significance in the life here and now. Marriage is a good gift of creation, but one which belongs strictly to this world. It is within marriage and the essential fellowship of humanity can be fulfilled in the most meaningful and human way. This worldly quality of marriage as a human commission is always closely linked to the prevailing historical situation, which is subject to development, since human existence is a reflective existence. We know that the history of salvation began in the misty dawn of human existence, and that the mist was slow to clear, because our ancestors were at first concerned with the act of living, and only gradually grew in self-questioning into a self-questioning being who was concerned to discover the meaning of their life. This is why it is impossible for the Christian view of humanity and of human marriage and family life to be a pure datum of revelation. It is more the result of a reflective human existence illuminated by revelation. Our very living as human beings is in itself a view of life and of the world. This view is not contradicted by revelation. It is often corrected by revelation where correction is needed, and received by it into transcendent sphere of life. The biblical ethos of marriage bears close traces of the prevailing view of the position of woman in society. It took, in effect, 11 centuries of Christianity before the social elements peculiar to the earlier secular form of marriage contract were incorporated into liturgical ceremony as sacrament. What had previously been secular became liturgical, and what had previously been a civil contract made within the family circle and supplemented by a priestly ceremony of blessing or veiling became a single liturgical whole conducted by the priest. From the 11th century onwards, juridical power over marriage was transferred from the secular to the church's sphere. It's also clear from the history of the church in the first 11 centuries that marriage was experienced as a secular reality, which, because of its moral and religious implications, required special pastoral care. From the 4th century onwards, a marriage liturgy evolved, which existed alongside the civil form of marriage, but which was not made obligatory in the West until the 11th century, and even then was not regarded as a condition of validity. Up to the 11th century, this liturgical form of marriage remained completely free. It was obligatory only in the case of clergy, in lower orders, in other words, in the case of those members of the clergy who were permitted to marry. Not only was this marriage liturgy not obligatory for other Christians, it was reserved for those Christians whose conduct was blameless. Until the 11th century, then, marriage was contracted civilly, although it was accompanied by church ceremonies. When does this marriage become effective? There's an old aphorism in marriage counseling that gets closer to the heart of both secular and sacramental marriage than does the code of law. When are two people married? 30 years later. This perhaps comes closer to what couples experience in their marriage. That becoming married, becoming two in one body, becoming sacramental symbol of the great covenant, is much more continuous activity than simply giving consent in two little words, I do. For centuries we have seen marriage tribunal courts delivering judgment on the validity or the non-validity of marriage, and today they are delivering judgments of non-validity in ever-growing numbers. None of these judgments are based on the defective faith, however, but on defective consent or defective covenant love. Could that perhaps be changed? There is first the problem involved in claiming that every marriage between baptized persons is a sacrament. There is second the problem of claiming that every marriage between baptized persons not celebrated in the form decreed is not a sacrament, or even a valid marriage, and therefore cohabitation or living in sin. My views expressed herein are based on the works of Karl Rahner and Edward Schillebeeckx in their view of sacraments and marriage. I believe that the way forward lies in the cooperation of anthropology and psychology, working together with theology towards a new understanding of the nature of what it means to be a human being, and how the sacraments, marriage, and the beauty of family life complements our journey as a human family. Pope Francis has correctly commented that the Church has had a century of flexing its legal muscles without strengthening the arm of compassion and mercy. We need to ask ourselves the question: how are we, as the community of the Church, to walk with and to support our struggling humanity in their daily journey towards I do. May the Lord grant you peace.